Hey there, responders and RMPs. Chrissy Brooks here with our second hypo for July 2026. We are going to grab our decision trees and jump right in, reading every word out loud, because you know what? It's good practice. Going to keep your mind fresh in that emergency situation. So we're dealing with oxygen 2 today. So here's our hypothetical scenario. You're called over to a brown truck that has just pulled into the building. The driver states he heard a hissing noise coming from the back of his truck when he turned in his air volume to the air dock. You determine that this package is the package the noise is coming from. Upon opening the box, you encounter this pressurized cylinder, which is actively leaking oxygen into the area. This leaking package is not generating heat, smoke, visible fumes, or vapors, and is not irritating the skin or eyes in any way. Answer the questions below based on this scenario. So as we go through our decision tree, our top box up here is going to be all no's, not leaking too much for us to absorb. Also, not heat, smoke, visible fumes, vapors, any of that kind of stuff. This box, or excuse me, when we get a no, we go this way. This box right here, we do have a diamond hazard label. We've got an oxygen 2 diamond hazard label on that box, so we're going to move right over here. This box, it is not listed as something that is prohibited in our system, so we get a no in this box. Moving down to our next box, these are things that are allowed in our system but are too dangerous for us to clean up. Oxygen is not one of them. So this one's also a no. Moves us over here into our edible liquid box. Oxygen is not a common household chemical, not an edible liquid. So this one is also getting a no. We're going to end up here in our yellow box. Our designated responder needs to handle this cleanup. So we're going to pick yellow box. And then which response or containment sheet are we going to utilize first? Well, let's go find our oxygen one. Here it is right here, flammable gas or oxygen. Let's go ahead and just turn to that while we're on that portion. So we are looking at page 9. Moving on here to our next page. What is the second item listed under hazards on the response sheet? So extremely flammable, may be ignited by heat, spark, or flames. Oxygen is not flammable but will support and accelerate combustion. Vapors may travel to a source of ignition and flash back. That sounds dangerous. Container may explode if exposed to heat or fire. Fire may produce irritating or poisonous gases, may be poisonous if inhaled or swallowed. Vapor may be extremely irritating. Contact may cause burns to the skin and eyes. This sounds like some nasty stuff, right? That's why we're going to wear our goggles, our boots, our apron, and our gloves. Going to put all 4 of those things on. And what does the decision tree tell us to do that specifically applies to this damage? So, if there's noticeable skin irritation due to fumes or vapors, do not attempt to continue cleanup. Notify your chain of command. Keep all sources of ignition away. Attempt to close the valve. That's probably going to solve our problem with this one. We're just going to close the valve on the top, right? Attempt to close that valve. Move the leaking cylinder outdoors to a well-ventilated area. Place a warning sign in the area to warn of flammable hazards and to keep employees away. Follow supplier instructions as to the return or disposition of the cylinder. If the supplier cannot be contacted, seal the non-leaking cylinder into a DMP bag with all the shipping labels visible and notify your environmental coordinator who will arrange for the disposal of the material. So I don't really like bullet point 4 and bullet point 5. I don't really follow those because the operator's quick reference guide tells us something different. So in our next question right here, it tells us that we need to go to our operator's quick reference guide. So I'm going to bring up the operator's quick reference guide waste disposal flow chart right here. As we go through the waste disposal flow charts, it's not one of these that ends us up in the yellow box, but it's a pressurized cylinder. So we're going to click on this and go to Appendix Q, see what it has to say for us. So the Veolia cylinder questionnaire can be found, and you can find it by just clicking on this link, which is super nice, or you can go to the environmental documents and form page. This is what that Veolia cylinder questionnaire, that's a mouthful, looks like. So we want to make sure that the valve is closed and not actively leaking. And then it gives you instructions what to do if you are still actively leaking. So go ahead, read this through, fill out this form. This is your Veolia cylinder questionnaire that we need to have filled out. And then it tells us what we need to do with that form. Also tells us the cylinder will be treated as facility generated waste. Therefore, we need an FWN temporary ID. The temporary ID is going to follow that same format as a DMN, but it starts with the letter F. And then we fill out a paper FWN disposal log. FWN disposals are not changing with the new improved system. You will still get a team email about FWNs. So if you happen to have a leaking cylinder in your center, we submit it as an FWN by clicking on this FWN form right here and filling it out. And then we scan that and email it to Veolia. Veolia is going to email us back an unconfirmed summary, and they're going to email us back confirmation, container, label, all of that kind of information. So FWNs are not changing with the new system. Okay, let's go back here to our hypo. So what form does the operator's quick reference guide link us to that we must fill out when we submit a cylinder for disposal? While I would love to fill out the GCHMBUF, the get this out of my building form, it's actually the Veolia cylinder questionnaire that you need to be filling out. Cylinders we submit to Veolia must also be accompanied by a facility waste notification form. Why? Well, because Veolia likes to make extra work for us? No. Veolia said so. Also, well, yeah, but also no. It's because Veolia classifies damaged and leaking pressurized cylinders as facility-generated waste. Therefore, they must have an FWN form submitted with them. All right, I know I need to get to that waste disposal flow chart. Remember, we already went through our waste disposal flow chart, and we ended up down here in our red box that we are going to be using the operator's quick reference guide for more specific information. Probably still working on your DOK, and that's fine. If you can't get into ETT, please make sure that you are filling these forms out. And I'm going to let you guys fill out your information. Make sure you're hitting that submit button. If you don't hit that submit button, I don't get your info, and you don't get credit for the time that you spent listening to me drone on and on about oxygen cylinders. So make sure you get that submit button hit. I'm going to see you guys next month. I can't believe it's July already. Next month is August and kids go back to school. Crazy, crazy. Keep yourself safe out there. Keep yourself safe. Use your decision tree. Use the tools that UPS gives us to keep ourselves safe. And have a great day. See you later.